Explore the latest innovations in AI-powered SASE at SASE Converge, Palo Alto Network's premier virtual event. Featuring experts and technologists from companies across the globe, this event reveals how SASE is transforming IT and end-user experiences while raising the bar on security. Watch on demand now at saseconverge.paloaltonetworks.com. That's saseconverge.paloaltonetworks.com.
Many of us have had network design discussions relating to natural disasters. What if a fire comes through, or a flood, a tornado, a hurricane? And for most of us, those discussions didn't feel overly worthy of our attention. Yeah, we should think about it. We should definitely plan for it. That is the right and responsible thing to do. I mean, and if we're really serious, we'll dust off the disaster recovery playbook now and then and give it a look. But honestly, most of us didn't believe a natural disaster was coming our way because it probably wasn't. On today's Heavy Networking, we're chatting with a networker for whom natural disasters aren't just likely, they're an inevitability. I'm Ethan Banks, along with Drew Conry Murray, and you can connect with us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and the 100% free Packet Pushers community Slack group, and please do. Our guest today is Christopher Neely, a senior network engineer at the Bahamas Telecommunications, and the network he supports and the operating environment he works in is a bit different from many. So, Chris, welcome to Heavy Networking, and man, this is the first time you've ever been on the show, so tell us all who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. As you know, my name is Christopher Neely. I live in the Bahamas and I work for the premier national telecommunications company, BTC, under the LLA umbrella. We focus in the Bahamas region, and I'm basically a core network engineer. A core network engineer means that we work in a specific type of environment, according to the Cisco model, where you have the core, distribution, and access, where the core focuses on internal network design and internal configurations. So basically, we make sure that the access, which connects to the customers, we take that information and we deliver to other parts of the network. And then from there, we may hand it off to different teams, different areas, different geographies, so forth. So that's basically what I do.
Okay.
And for our day-to-day, I manage some core network devices, provide support for teams, a little bit of collaboration between our Caribbean counterparts and our Latin American counterparts. Sometimes we may work with AT&T, Verizon. Sometimes we are the middleman, oftentimes between companies in the United States to reach their customers in the Bahamas. We would be the mile in between there. A lot of times it's an interesting job with its ups and downs, but for the most part, I love it.
So how did you end up as a network engineer? You and I chatted a while back, and you had some interesting stories. So your career path to end up as a network engineer was interesting. Why don't you share some of that with us?
Oh, wow. It's definitely a unique story. I started off, I guess you could say, in college, doing a major in psychology. And as I graduated psychology, I was looking for a job. And as we all know, when you're starting, it's often very hard to get your foot into the door. So it's very hard to get a job as a psychologist in the Bahamas. And so as I was looking and maybe trying to get higher certifications, degrees, trying to get my master's, I said, well, let me do a part-time job and make some money. And it just so happens that one of my lecturers had a contact into BTC, and he was able to share that with me, and they got me some interviews. And after about 3 or 4 interviews, I started working at BTC as a technician, a service delivery technician.
Okay, wait, though. You were a psychology major, you said, right? That was your.
Yep.
You ended up in telecom.
Yeah. Well, when you're looking for your first job, you're not too picky. And I just was thinking, once I get some money doing what I do, BTC, I could go off into my field, psychology. At the minute, I thought that's what I really, really wanted to do. But as I was working at BTC and working in fiber optics, it was ground floor. We were unrolling and bringing fiber to customers' homes, fiber to the home. And it just was interesting doing that. And then one day, someone from HR came to me and he recommended to the whole team to try out for the CCNA. It's recognized worldwide. And it was the first time I heard about it. And so I tried it out. I started studying for it. Thought it was going to be easier than it was. What a lot of people don't tell you is IT certifications can be really rough when you first start. And there's a certain way you have to learn. You have to really practice. You have to get your hands-on experience.
Well, plus
And
the CCNA is just a massive book. Just that it's so much that they throw at you in that first level exam.
yes, most persons would recommend maybe starting off with an entry level, maybe a Company
Hmm.
A++ or a Network Plus. But I just went straight to the CCNA. So there's a lot of learning that, I really had to do and a lot of struggles that I had, but I'm actually appreciative of it because it really made me appreciate when I got to that level and I finally got my certification, what it means to be a network engineer and that it's a real serious profession with guidelines and standards that you have to follow and you have to study. It's not an easy field, but I find it a very rewarding field.
So if I understand your journey right, you sort of did this as a job just to make some money while you were planning on pursuing a career in psychology, and you were pulling cable and doing installs at the home with fiber, and then decided to tackle the CCNA as you sort of grasped how much work the CCNA would take. Did you at that time decide, okay, I think I'm putting psychology aside and I'm going all in on this IT career?
Right. So for me, the what really made me think that maybe this may be the career for me was learning the protocols, particularly OSPF, the dynamicness of it. I really like the ability of learning how a computer communicates with another computer. When I was
Hmm.
doing psychology, I really focused on learning and behavior. And this part of IT, network engineering, it's almost very similar in a sense where the computers learn what they need to learn or information that you want to send based upon the network that's put in place. Computers by themselves are relatively dumb, but they become smart when you start connecting them with different services, different servers, different parts of the world, the globe. And that really interests me. And that, I think, was able to help me sort of segue from learning basically on an organic level to now learning on a computer level, so to speak. And that's what really drawn me. And then once I got the CCNA, what a lot of people tell you, but what I really came to see firsthand is doors opened up for me when I got the CCNA. Uh,
Hmm.
Before, when I was doing my psychology and I was applying to get into different places, I wasn't getting any callbacks, no hits on my LinkedIn, no emails, no job offers. But as soon as got my CCNA, it's like the world changed. Persons that were not interested in, hearing me speak, became now interested because now I have a certification from Cisco to back up that, hey, I know,
Hmm.
I know what I'm talking about. I really enjoyed that. And it was with that I was able to transition from the old position I was in, which was a service delivery technician, which is more like a help desk dealing with KLX and dealing with internet, dealing with any basic service customers may have problems with. We were like I guess you could say, tier two, basically dealing with that, helping them resolve their services, provisioning, helping techs, some installations, working with hotels, so forth. And I basically, once I got the CCNA, I transitioned from there into a engineer, focusing on now in the core aspect, dealing and provisioning and dealing with the routers themselves. More of a hands-on experience, and I felt it was a way more enjoyable and rewarding experience once I transitioned into the engineering world. And then once I reached there, I was like, "Yep, this is me." This is what I love. For some, they don't like the long hours of working as engineer. For me, that was my passion. It was helping customers, and instead of just one or two customers, under the tier two role, I was helping islands. I was working with persons with 20, 30 years of experience, going into banks, going into government institutions, and telling these IT professionals, hey, you may know what you're talking about, but when it comes to networks and when it comes to this service right here, this is what you need. And once I give them that feedback and they follow it, it comes to success when we're both satisfied. And that just would be a reason why I would encourage persons to maybe consider network engineering if you're struggling for an area in IT to go into. Just look it up. So it's pretty simple to get into, I would say, but you know, the first step is looking and maybe reading up on a couple of books and watching a couple of videos.
You make it sound so simple. Read a couple books, watch a couple videos, pass an exam. You're good. That makes your career. And it actually is that simple, but it also isn't. And you know what I mean, Chris.
Correct, correct.
They're simple
So
and they're easy. Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So next thing that people may not think about is the steps you may need to take are easy, but the time that you need to put in and the commitment
Right.
is what
That's
gets
the hard
you.
part.
No one tells you that with the CCNA. It's not a simple book read or an hour or two studying or 4 or 5 hours. It's sometimes dozens of hours into studying. And um, for me, I had to invest into buying my books, buying a router set at that time to study for my CCNA. And when I started my career, I was at like the lowest scale in my company. So those resources and just picking up and paying for them was hard.
yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
it paid off. Within a year or two, the type of employment opportunities and the monies that I made back, getting to do consultation, it
I
paid back in full.
I have a similar story. The very first certification I ever did when I was getting into IT infrastructure, I refinanced my car so that I could afford the class and the books and the lab time and all of that stuff to prepare for that cert. And then I wrecked the car. I was upside down on the loan, which was bad. But as you said, in the long run, that sacrifice initially, just to scrap and figure out whatever I could do to come up with the money to afford what I needed to do to work on that certification, it paid off. It paid huge dividends. It was the start of my IT career. This goes way back in the 90s. But so, Chris, you've talked about various things that you're doing on the network now, and now you're on the core team. It sounds like you're doing mostly core network kind of work. Can you be more detailed about what your day-to-day responsibilities are like?
Sure. One of the things I love about my job is we do a lot for our day to day. It can shift dramatically because the team that I'm on, we work with many different elements. One day my day to day can be simply supporting an access team member. Uh, we have fiber to the home to customers. And so the access side would deal with like the customers, ONTs, and their routers and so forth. We basically installed some routers in the customers' houses. Their devices plug into these routers. These routers then plug back into our different buildings, our exchanges or co-locations across the Bahamas. And then from there, this is where the core network team comes in to play because we have to get the handoff information. And so sometimes it may be as simple as maybe increasing the speed for between the access coming from the customer going into our network. So sometimes we may do a live configuration, or we may be testing customers, maybe reporting that their speed is slow. So we may work with the DWDM team with fiber configurations and testing the light levels. Sometimes it may be dealing with islands. An island may be down. Maybe a router was struck by lightning or a fire happened or simply the router card failed. Then now someone needs to fix it. So if it's a satellite location where there's no BC engineer on the island, then my job would be I would get on a plane or get on a boat and I would get to that location and I would focus on bringing that service up. Sometimes that we're the only provider on the island. And so you would have to use your uh, training and your instincts to basically work on bringing up a router without any help, because you're the only person on the island with training and with experience and with the equipment. It's
It's up to you, buddy.
up to you.
Did
Yeah,
you say a router got hit by lightning?
yeah, yeah. So when we say get hit by lightning, I know my power experts were going to round me for this, but we don't necessarily mean the device gets hit by lightning, but more so when you think about lightning, you're actually talking about fields, electromagnetic fields. And
Okay.
when you have lightning is very explosive and able to jump from devices to devices. And so it's more so if lightning hits the ground and the electromagnetic field surrounding that area, if a router is inside of that electromagnetic field, you can sometimes see some funky behavior where your devices can fail, like your cards,
Hmm.
your line card can fail, your CPU can fail, or even your SFPs may fail. Sometimes I've seen some fiber got burned out because of that electromagnetic field. It's very
Hmm.
powerful and it can have a very disastrous effect to your devices. And even though you may have devices grounded, at the end of the day, lightning is very, very, very strong, as we all know.
Hey, everybody, let's take a quick break for a message from sponsor Palo Alto Networks. Today's businesses are adapting to a hybrid workforce with employees working at corporate branches, home offices, and on the go. Digital transformation initiatives and new AI capabilities are key to maintaining relevance in a changing global marketplace and transforming operations with enhanced automation and increased productivity. To get a handle on all this, you're invited to join Palo Alto Networks at SASE Converge, the industry's premier virtual event. Available now to stream on demand, SASE Converge brings you experts and technologists from leading organizations across the globe who reveal precisely how AI-powered SASE is transforming IT and end-user experiences while raising the bar on security. See why Palo Alto Networks was recently recognized as the 2 times leader in the 2024 Gartner Magic Quadrant for single vendor SASE, and get insights on enabling Gen AI apps for your workforce, the latest innovations for the industry's only integrated enterprise browser, and creating a seamless IT experience. Watch on demand now at sassyconverge.paloaltonetworks.com. That's sassyconverge.paloaltonetworks.com. And now back to the podcast. So when you have to, you said sometimes you have to get on a boat or a plane to do a repair. Does that mean you're always carrying SFPs, line cards, fiber optic cables, a whole router? Like what's your kit bag look like?
This was something I had to learn from personal experience. And my philosophy is really be ready for anything. And so one of the things I may do is I always carry a 4-port 3400 Cisco Metro Ethernet switch. Uh,
Hmm.
which has a Metro license, simply for even though our device is going to have more ports and need more port density, this may just be focusing on getting the crucial elements and services on an island up,
Hmm.
mainly being, 4G is a big one that customers really need up. We need some type of communication on the island, so I always like to carry one of them. I always carry SFPs of different speeds, of different uh, wavelengths, 1310, 1550, and then 100 gigs, 10 gigs, 100 gigs, 10 kilometers, 20, 40. I like to carry maybe about 4 or 5 of each. And then I like to carry the different brands that are different vendors that we support in our network. And then I also like to carry single and dual mode because sometimes you may have a configuration that may be more legacy, so it may support only dual mode SFPs, and maybe the device on the next side only has dual mode. So you really don't want to go to an island and specifically like some of these islands, they're remote. So
Yeah.
a lot of times they require a charter, which can range in thousands of dollars. So you really only have one chance to pack everything and make sure you get it up.
Mhm.
And then the most important thing is, the real reason why you really need to get it up is customers. Your your customer is going to be frustrated because the services we provide are crucial to daily life. Some persons, they can't order services through the mail boot, so they can't even order food without uh, internet services. And so, you're dealing with almost humanitarian in a sense where
Hmm.
it's on you to ensure that people can get their services to survive, you know. And so that's why I
So
try to carry everything that I could.
that makes sense. So I guess we should, kind of lock down what the services that Bahamas Telecom does provide. It sounds like you do consumer as well as business ISP.
Yeah, yeah. We do mostly everything, to be honest with you. We do consumer, we do business, we also support other ISPs. Um, we do mobile, data, LTE, uh, voice, telephone, IPTV,
Mm.
broadband, DSL, the range,
That's
CCTV.
nuts just because of the number of different technologies that are involved to deliver all of those service. That's a crazy stack.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm probably forgetting about half of the services we do, but we try to do it all.
And are you the only provider on the island, or do you also have competition?
We have one other competitor. The other competitor being they go by Cable Bahamas Group, and then their mobile services are alive. So yeah, we compete with them. Sometimes we work hand in hand. Sometimes there's some sites that we don't have a presence in, and sometimes there's some sites we have a presence in that they don't have a presence in. We work along with each other. I'd have to say though, I still think we're the best. Out of the two, we're the best. So
Definitely had to get that in.
anybody who's looking for services, BDC, the best. You can't go wrong with us.
So I want to understand the Bahamas as a geography to function as a network engineer. You mentioned having to go to different islands and so on. How many islands are there that you got to deal with?
Okay, so there's 700 islands and keys in the Bahamas,
Wow.
of the which I would say there may be about 30 populated islands and keys. And we are responsible for, because we're the national provider of providing coverage all around the Bahamas. From persons, there may be maybe I've seen maybe 20 persons on an island or key, and we would provide uh, at the bare minimum internet as well as LTE or 3G.
Mhm.
Hmm. So typically, is there fiber going to each island, or is it going to be, oh, they're close enough and they're getting hit with a tower?
A mixture of both. A mixture of both. Some islands have 100% fiber capacity, and some we are expanding as we speak. And then there's some that we are unveiling a very interesting product that I'm working on, Toronto. It's really good. It's helping us reach these remote farming locations and providing them speeds faster than Starlink.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
so that's one of the things I'm looking forward to as the year goes by. Really helping those customers that um, want faster speeds. Because as the internet expands and as we start to develop and start looking into AI and automation and cloud services, I think that the future for persons that may be in small, desolate populations is, I think, our Toronto offering. So Toronto basically being we provide just like Starlink, we use satellites and we use microwave to boost the signal from our co-location, and we push it to customers' houses, which they may have in, I think the term is RN, station on their house, and which focuses like a satellite to receive the signal. And from that signal, then we just do like any other service and we push it to our CPE, our customer edge devices or
Mhm.
customer premises equipment.
Yeah. Undersea cables, you got to have that's got to be super critical for the network operating environment in the Bahamas. So where do
Mhm.
the undersea cables come from? I'm assuming North America just because of geographic proximity,
Oh yeah,
and where else?
yeah. So this is another reason why BBC is one of the best corporations in the Bahamas is because we are the premier owners of a undersea fiber cable called the BDSN, and it ranges throughout the Bahamas and it connects the Bahamas to Miami. Uh,
Ah,
we own that and we manage that, uh, and it's a very I want to say I think we're the only subsea cable connecting, this area. I think Haiti, the Bahamas, and us. I want to say we're the only one, but I'm not too sure about that. But I know for sure in the Bahamas we're the only undersea cable. Yeah,
So
we're the
hmm.
only
you've
undersea
got
cable.
your own cable that connects to the broader internet in Miami.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Hmm, hmm. So let's talk about weather then, because Bahamas gets hit with hurricanes regularly. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time when the next one hits and how bad the damage is going to be.
Right.
So, living in that environment, how do you design the network infrastructure to be able to? Do you design it to survive, or do you assume it's going to fail and make it easy to rebuild? How do you approach that scenario?
So the key focus is we design to last. Um, our designs are based upon uh, you know, not only vendor, close vendor integration where we work with our big vendors like Cisco, Juniper, and so forth, Nokia. And we would sit down with them and we would tell them this is what we want to do. And we would like a design to back this. Or sometimes we may have a design in place. And then we just go to them to say, okay, how can you help us execute this design? And so the basic design is, of course, we know hurricanes are in place, so we try to do a lot of redundancy. Redundancy is key because at the end of the day, if you have, let's say, three different major connections to the outer network, then you know that if one fails, while you're working on fixing the one that fails, it may take some time to fix it. And so you have less of a pressure. You can come up with more genuine fixes because when that second one fails, the pressure gets on.
Mhm.
Versus if you just had one connection or two connection, when one fails, the pressure is on. So, we try to do as much redundancy as possible. And what I really like, what I found interesting, what BDC does is when it comes to hurricane time, it's like the company is in a whole different mode. It is preparation mode. It's like a hurricane already hit the Bahamas before we
Hmm.
started preparing for it. Everyone is buttoned down. When you need a resource, you just have to mention the word hurricane and you got that resource. Uh, Persons that may take a little while to sign on certain projects or projects we're lollygagging, as soon as you say this is the impact, the company jumps up and nobody wants to be responsible for not supporting you or helping you. And so
Mhm.
this really helps the engineering team design solutions that are robust and even robust as well as you can almost like prepare for for each hurricane. You can see certain conditions and you can almost design a solution to prevent that occurrence. That because of how much time and support you get from not only the local team but the external team as well. That's what I like, and that's how we prepare a lot for hurricanes, as well as there is a lot of experience on our team. I think particularly in the core network team is maybe about 10, 12 of us, and I can confidently say we have over 100 years of experience um, with just maybe three or four members on that team.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
and when you have persons like that, they can really help you and they can see patterns. They can say, oh, you need to make sure that this line card is here, or it's in this settlement because this other settlement, it floods easily. And when this floods, if service is down, it's going to take us 4 days to get this here. Versus
Mm.
if we send it to this settlement, they can easily drive over as soon as the hurricane is over and we can install the services and bring it up. Or they may say, every year we see this fiber link go down. Let's make sure that we put extra resources and bringing up this second fiber link to, to rely on that. And then when the hurricane goes, we can make sure that we have that the one that always goes down. We bring that one up as well. And that's the importance of experience, and that's how
Mm.
BDC is ready for hurricanes and how we can react and be so nimble, at times.
I'm curious about the physical infrastructure because here in the States, the actual cables that run into people's homes or to businesses tend to be on poles, same for power lines, and obviously in a hurricane environment, it's
Mhm.
probably not a great idea. So are your cables, do they tend to be buried, or how do you handle that the wind as an issue for infrastructure?
We have a mixture of both. We have a mixture of on the pole as well as buried underground. Um, the main, I guess, we focus our architecture is more so of almost like a body, and that you have a heart, and then which is your core network, and then your core network spreads out almost like veins to the different parts,
Hmm.
to different co-locations, and then the co-locations spread out to the customers. And so oftentimes the main arteries, I guess you can say, the connection between the core businesses, they tend to be underground, and
Hmm.
the going from the co-locations to the customers, a mixture of both underground and overground, as well as when you have your different services, you may have a midpoint between the co-location and the customer houses. For like our fiber infrastructure, we follow design using LCPs, which are basically just small little cabinets, which basically may service maybe 400 or 500 different customers. And then
Hmm.
each you may have 6 7 different LCPs that connects to one GPON in the co-location, and the co-location GPON then connects to your core routers.
During a storm, there's the wind that Drew just mentioned. There's also flooding. What tends to take equipment out or knock down network infrastructure more? Is it flooding? Is it wind? Is it something else?
Tends to be flooding. When it comes to hurricanes, it's usually flooding. Water can be so, well, Mother Nature can be unpredictable, but water does a lot of damage, as well as power. You can have storm surges, not storm surge, but power surges, and power surges really affects a lot of equipment. And a lot of times our equipment holds up firm, but when power surges and lightning hits your equipment and your equipment goes down, no one blames the power company. Everyone blames, hey, it's you guys.
Right.
Just have to take it on the chin and do your best to get the services up as soon as possible, and to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, it sounds like, Bahamas Telecom has obviously worked out disaster recovery plans and business continuity plans, but does part of that include partnering with whatever the energy providers are on the islands, or are they just like doing their own thing and whatever you got to deal with whatever happens?
From my experience, it's more of the latter. Um, yeah, it's more of the latter. We try to we work internally. We may, branch out, and we may ask for a engineer to support us, or we may say, our representative to say, hey, we want to run these type of tests. Can
Mm.
you guys reach out? But oftentimes, disaster and business continuity is more so focused between us as BDC, as well as reaching out to our counterparts, because we are under the LLA umbrella, and the LLA, Liberty Latin America, is structured all throughout the Caribbean. And so we would, consult with them. We would say, hey, this is what we want to do, or this is the state of our network, and we want to maybe put in this technology or we're running into this problem. What do you guys think? And so it's collaboration effort, and that's what helps drives the business continuity, as well as it helps us, do these network designs that are tried and tested in different markets.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I'm curious how you do person-to-person communication in situations where there's network outages, whether it's the mobile network or the wired network. Do you have a plan for that? Do you have like some kind of local radio system you can use, or how do you make sure people can actually talk to each other during a storm or an emergency?
All right. So, one good thing is satellite communications. Also, too, not every part of the network tends to be down. We
Mhm.
have many different. Sometimes we have different landing points. We have different settlements, different ways, different back doors, so to speak. And so we would either rely on them, or we would have a person on site who is trained enough to bring the network to a certain level where we
Mhm.
can then SSH and remote or get access to Cisco or any other vendor, and we can
Mhm.
have them support us as we work on bringing those different elements up. Or, like I
Mhm.
say, sometimes we may send someone like me to the island to, to see maybe what's wrong and what we need to bring up. A lot of times, it's your best guess or best reasoning for why an element may be down. And so they may say, okay, Chris, we've seen that this router just shows this type of problem, or the Cisco router here is really uh, has really faulty CPUs, or the line cards tend to fail around this time. Carry two line cards, make sure carry your console cable, SFPs, so forth. And then you carry it there, and sometimes you don't need the part, sometimes you need the part. But at the end of the day, you just wanna either fix the problem, or at the bare minimum, get it to a certain state where it can reach outside the Bahamas and other people can assist you with the problem.
Got it.
IPv6, Chris. We've been talking a lot about disaster recovery, but I want to get to this the kind of a fundamental question here. Is IPv6 an important thing in your network or not really?
Yes. IPv6 is very important. Personally, in my part of the area where I work, which is the core MPLS part, which mainly deals with router to router connectivity, we don't really touch IPv6. But from my other persons in the core network, I've seen other areas rely on and steadily improve and transition the network to dual stack IPv4 and IPv6, or to fully IPv6. But generally, you would see in the MPLS region, you don't have, because it's a controlled network. We only need, maybe, let's say we have 200 devices, then you really only need 200 different management IP addresses, or you could do it in the 10.00/8 scheme or whatever. But now when
Yeah.
you're dealing with the customers, that's what you tend to see, the more of the IPv6 addressing schemes.
Do you give IPv6 addressing out to the end customers?
That I cannot say for sure. I'm not too 100% confident on that.
Well, it could be, and it depends as well, because yeah, where I live, neither of the providers that are in my area, as far as I can tell, will give me V6 here at my house. So yeah, but if they don't have a reason to, I guess they're not gonna. But I'm still very interested in getting that at some point. Now, you mentioned you have a multi-vendor network. You talked about Cisco, you talked about Juniper, you
Oh,
mentioned Nokia.
one thing I cannot, though I know for our mobile network, we automatically give persons IPv6.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, that is where I get IPv6 is on my phone. My carrier
Yeah,
provides me V6 for sure.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely one of the easier parts to do. When you're dealing with like your broadband, then you have to change more of your infrastructure. And so um, your mobile, because now your mobile is tends to be more virtualized, And so it's easier to update your virtualization equipment,
Hmm.
and maybe change out a server, maybe upgrade a license versus your broadband, which traditionally, history speaking, has always been physical devices. So you're
Yeah.
gonna get a
Yeah.
little pushback, and a slow upgrading speeds from IPv4 to IPv6 on your broadband providers.
Hmm. Now, you mentioned you got a multi-vendor network. Cisco, Juniper, Nokia, you mentioned those vendors. Why? Is it driven by cost? Is it you pick a certain vendor to solve a particular problem? Why multi-vendor?
Hmm. So I've always asked this question myself, and a lot of times the answer changes. Um, Sometimes it may be simply business, um, how the business is. Sometimes the person in charge may be a strictly Cisco person, may have came from a Cisco background, so their faith is in Cisco. Sometimes we have vendor bids, and Cisco just gets outbidded by Nokia. Or sometimes Nokia or other vendors may do great deals, where they give great support. I can't say the name, but one vendor, when we was considering them over another, and I asked the person in charge, why did you choose this vendor, even though we know this other vendor is clearly the better one? And he said, well, I really wanted to go with that other vendor, but the reason why we went with this vendor is they give us a better deal and better support.
Hmm.
Yeah.
With this vendor, at the end of the day, when we run into an issue, we're tracking down license and they send us the equipment. We know they sent us the equipment, but because we didn't give them a serial, maybe 6 months later, they won't support us with this equipment, even though the record shows this is their equipment. And that it becomes very frustrating when you're dealing with like these outages and these when you have to answer to the different persons in charge and you can't get support to fix this equipment because this vendor is playing hardball with you. And so then you simply say, okay, come next network refresh, we're shopping around, we're going around, and then
Yeah.
sometimes some vendors are just clearly the best in that area, and that's why we go with them.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, it's
mixture.
it's interesting though. It's not always it's not always an engineering decision why a relationship with a vendor exists
Yeah,
or doesn't exist. There's so many more things that can be involved in that, which when I was a young engineer, frustrated the heck out of me. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why did we buy this? It's terrible. And the reason isn't because it was a wonderful solution and it was the quote unquote right answer. It could have been politics. It could have been the someone had a relationship with someone else and they were buddies and so they do business together and that's just the way it worked and stuff
yeah,
like that can I don't mean anything unethical. It's just sometimes
yeah,
that's just the way business gets done,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it'd make me crazy, and then I kind of realized this is just life. I got to get used to this.
And that's one of the things I really think with when you become a network engineer, when you realize you're now into that more senior level, is when you realize that IT and engineering happens outside of a vacuum. It's not necessarily just technical the way you have to think. At the end of the day, particularly in telecom, you're a business first. The business needs to make money, the business has business relationships, business contracts, has business persons. And so at the end of the day, you have to sort of look at not only the technical reasons for something, but also the business reasons for something. You know, the business implications at the end of the day is really
Yeah.
what drives your engineering goals, drives, stride projects.
This makes me wonder, like, maybe your psychology background wasn't such an odd thing to bring into this field because at some level there is a human element
Oh yeah.
to networking to business.
Yes, yes. In fact, I would say that's my secret weapon.
Hmm.
I psychology, not so much the reverse psychology, but just for the openness to how the business functions as an engineer. It I don't just need to design solutions. I need to design the appropriate solution. I need to
Mhm.
think about the customers internally, externally. I need to be able to communicate with them, as well as design documents to explain to them why this may work, this doesn't work. Sometimes you can be on the phone with a vendor like Cisco, and Cisco can have an idea that this is the issue that you guys have, and you have to sort of guide them and show them that, hey, no, this may not be the particular issue. We tend to see this type of problem here. We thinking it's some strain of this problem over here. And then basically after you explain it to them, because they understand more on a technically level, the product, but you understand more so on the practical level of the product. You understand that, hey, this product may be used for this issue over here, but we're using it for this issue over here. Or this vendor saw we could use this product as this, and this is what we're using it. And so this is the problem that we're really having, you know. And so that's one of the things that you have to do, uh, as well
Yeah,
as
there's an element of communication and persuasion are
yes,
valid skills in this environment.
exactly. Because at the end of the day, you cannot get a change done if you cannot properly communicate to shareholders and persons you report to
Stakeholders, yeah.
that this issue is important and this issue requires some type of business expense, some type of business action, you know.
Well, Chris, as a closing question here, what advice do you have for people who aren't working as a network engineer today, but they'd like to be?
Hmm. My advice to you, two things. The first is read up on your information of what it means about the field. As much as I preach about the field and I try to convince and baptize people into the network engineering field, it's not for everybody. Sometimes it can be long hours. You may not appreciate the long hours. It's a lot
Hmm.
of learning. You have to constantly refresh and update your certifications, your understanding of certain things, and so it can be rough. But just read up on it. Hit up Google, hit up ChatGPT, see what it means to be a network engineer, see if it may be something you like, and then look at a certification. Doesn't have to be CCNA, doesn't have to be JNCIA, doesn't have to be any of those things. Just pick one and just look at the syllabus. Just print the syllabus out, look at it, and say, okay, is this something that I want to know? Is this something I need to know? So forth. Just do that. And then the second thing, getting into the field, one of the greatest things I can advise anyone is be knowledgeable that your name gets you in rooms where you're not in. Because at the end of the day, a lot of hiring decisions, a lot of movement decisions, a lot of commendations, they happen, so to speak, on the golf course. They happen
Hmm.
behind closed doors when your bosses or people you don't know are talking to people who they know, saying, hey, who's the best person for this job? I'm looking for
Hmm.
somebody on my team. Who do you recommend? And once you've put in a certain type of level where persons know, hey, that's Chris. Chris is passionate. Chris gets this done. Chris is reliable, yada, yada. Once they know that, then they're more likely to hire you into any IT role, particularly network engineering, because they know not only your technical aptitude, but they can see that you're a person they can work with.
Yes.
I don't want to be on a maintenance window for 12 hours with somebody who's a know-it-all, somebody who's irritated. I don't want to do it. My boss told me, I'd rather take somebody who I don't know or somebody who don't know a little about network engineering, but easy to get along with, willing to learn. I'd rather take one of them than somebody who could tell me IPv6 RFC. So That's it, my
People
point.
don't get that, Chris. Man, that is the truth. Boy, my own parallel to that would be when I was working as a consultant, the number of people that would approach me from the side and go, when the consultant contract's over, might you be interested in a full-time job? Because they knew they could work with me. The personality was okay. I wasn't difficult to work with or obnoxious. That happened a lot. And then the other thing you say about people talking. Yeah, and the networking world is small in your region if you're out there listening. Different companies and different managers and so on, they know each other, they get together. Running joke that some of us had where I live was we have all had each other's jobs, and we could and your reputation follows you and precedes you. People know things about you. They've heard things. Don't think you just live in a vacuum and no one knows who you are when you walk into an interview. You may not get the interview because they have heard of you
Exactly.
because there's a community of people out there in technology and they talk. And
Yeah,
boy, if you have a reputation for being able to get along, that goes a long way.
very far. Very far.
Chris, how do people follow you on the internet? I don't know if you're active in social media, but if you are, would you share those things?
Sure. The only thing I have for social media right now is you can follow me on LinkedIn. Christopher Neely. You can reach out to me, add me. I'm always looking forward to networking and reaching out to others and learning about how other telecommunication companies are functioning and how they're structured and the technologies you're doing. Cisco, Nokia, Juniper, whatever. KLX, I love it all. So just reach out to me, add me, and I'll be sure to check up on you, read your post, and maybe follow you if you offering some good information.
Well, Chris, thanks for taking the time today. This was a spectacular conversation, everything I had hoped for. So, thanks again for taking the time. And if you're out there listening, still, well, you made it to the end. Thanks for listening to Heavy Networking today. And if you like Chris's story, maybe you've got a career story of your own that you would like to share. You can let us know that and anything else you'd like to tell us at packetpushers.net/follow up. And while you're on our website, check out everything else we offer there. That's free. The whole website is free. There's no like paywalled parts or teasers or anything. If it's there, you can have it. There's no login required. We're not tracking you around the web. We've got newsletters, several other podcasts, including and is for networking for people that are new to the networking industry, Packet Protector for the security minded folks out there, Total Network Operations for hands on ops folks, and Technically Leadership for your career aspirations, and several other podcasts as well. You could also subscribe to our blog where we've got engineering articles, technical opinions, and industry news analysis. I've been Ethan Banks along with Drew Conray Murray. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and the Packet Pushers Community Slack group. Until next time, just remember, too much networking would never be enough.